What did you learn the most about your love with your wife from being away from her for so long?
In a very tangible, practical sense, it showed me how incredible she was at support. I'll give you examples of that. I mean, she's been very supportive leading up to Antarctica in every way. I mean, she funded our life. I kind of joked that my job title was Explorer and Sugar Baby. But out there, it to your point, like the absence makes the heart grow fonder. Not only did it amplify our love, but when I had many low moments out there, some low ones. And when somebody's in that condition, you can say something without meaning to that makes it worse. It's hard to support somebody going through a very dark time.
Yeah.
Every time she would say the perfect thing. She allowed me to feel what I felt and then provide some perspective to keep moving through. In a very concrete example, there was one day where, it was day 5 actually, so I was very fuel conscious on my expedition. I was taking the bare minimum fuel a person could take because of how much I needed to save weight. So there was a few things I'm doing without getting into the nitty gritty of how a stove works that accidentally led to me burning a hole in my tent. So now I'm sitting there in my tent looking at this small hole being like, I'm on day 5. What did I just do? And as a Marine, my inner dialogue can be quite self-deprecating and beating myself up, right? So I'm like, you fucking idiot, what did you do? And then I'm calling my wife because I needed some help with sewing. I had studied sewing, but it was years ago. Then I kind of forgot. So I call her and she could tell something was wrong. And I'm thinking, oh shit, she's going to be like, what did you do, you idiot? And I'm like, so I burned a hole in my tent. Her first response, not even thinking, first response is, no problem. There's a solution. We'll fix this. We got this. And I was kind of like, wow. I was kind of blown away and then I told her later, I was like, I thought you'd be like, you fucking idiot. And she's like, why would I say that to you? I was like, that's what I say to myself, kind of joking. But the point is that how she was able to be an anchor, a pillar, a rock, going through whether it be burning a hole in tent or just the extreme hardships on those frustrating days or when my body's dying and falling apart, those days, it awakened me even more to how incredible this relationship is. And that time away, at least for me, she might not agree, but the time away was beautiful. Like I know for her, she went through her own emotional journey as well, but I value the missing of that, and like I said earlier, and this is coming back to the paradox of oneness. Love is not just, if you're around somebody 24/7, everybody's going to lose their shit a little bit. So, and I'm not saying it has to be 60 days in Antarctica. That's obviously an extreme, but that's the duality. When you create separation and connection, you create a whole that is greater than each individual part. So this is coming back to playing on this certain edge. If you're in a relationship where you find yourself being too far apart all the time, maybe build more of that. Or two together, go to play a little bit apart. Go for one day away. And how that'll amplify when you're together. It just makes you feel so much more valuable, and that love is so much more profound.
There's an old parable about the wolf who's trying to get the porridge not too hot, not too cold, the Goldilocks zone. And the Goldilocks zone of relationship is really beautiful, and you just spoke to it.
Yeah.
But there's also an internal dialogue that relates to the Goldilocks zone. You had mentioned that you're like, I'm a Marine, and so sometimes I get really hard on myself and I say, you fucking idiot.
Yeah.
I think it's really both humble and transparent and a bit vulnerable that you'd share that, since your work is built upon transcending the illusion.
Yeah.
Because that illusion, it seems like still residues of that show up. Maybe it's from your military days.
Of course.
Maybe it's from just life itself. How do you hold that world and not get stuck in a shame spiral of, you fucking idiot. Oh, I'm noticing that I'm calling myself a fucking idiot. Oh, you fucking idiot for calling yourself, the shame spiral.
Yeah.
So with that narrative that drove you in the past to be a great Marine, to be able to, risk your life for other people.
Yeah.
As you're moving into this next stage of your life, post journey, how do you tend to that part of yourself? I'm not saying you need to know exactly why it's there or dissect why it's there. Like, we all have parts of ourselves that we don't need to know why they're there. We just simply acknowledge that they're there.
Yeah.
But that part of you that would say, you burned a hole in your tent, you fucking idiot. How do you hold that part with reverence and grace and love as you move forward to whatever the next leg of the journey looks like?
Yeah, there's two parts to how I answer that. It's a beautiful question. So one, in my book, Fearvana, I talk about what's called second dart syndrome. So Buddha said we're all stabbed by the two darts of suffering. The first dart is the one we don't control. Let's say I stub my toe. My toe hurts. That's the first dart. The second dart is when I start saying, bad things only happen to me. God hates me. This door is stupid. My world is stupid. Why did I stub my toe? And we go into that spiral, you just said, right? I'm beating myself up about feeling this way, talking this way. And second dart syndrome is when, without awareness, without consciousness, we let that self-dialogue spiral, just as you were saying. So the key to stopping that is to recognize that this is a second dart. And you don't have to get caught up in what's the first dart. Is it the external thing? Because most of our thoughts we don't control. They just happen. They arise, right? Because they're a pattern from something that has been created. This comes back to releasing attachment or resisting and clinging. It's just accepting what is. And accepting what is not only accepting external circumstance. Hey, I had this thought. I'm not going to beat myself up for it. And as soon as you stop the second dart, now you've seized control again. You've seized awareness again to stop that spiral of second dart syndrome. Hey, I noticed myself talking this way. That was the first dart. So the only thing to think about when you're applying this in your life, however that internal dialogue for you is, as soon as you bring conscious awareness to it, you have stopped that spiral of second dart syndrome and you've regained control of that second dart of suffering. And all like unnecessary suffering, as I said earlier, is resistance. All unnecessary suffering is resistance of accepting the isness. As soon as you accept the isness, hey, I talk this way. Now I don't have to go into why did I talk this way? What's wrong with me for talking this way? And doing that. So that's the foundation first, is the acceptance of isness, freeing yourself from those second darts of suffering. From there, another way to then, now what do you do with that, is to go play on the other edge of the duality. So I'll give you an example. My wife and I had gone on a tough hike in Hawaii. This was not her jam. We hiked Mauna Kea. It was a very hard hike. It was like 13,000 feet summit. So she was struggling. And as we were very close to the summit, her inner dialogue was, this gets to be easy. This gets to be easy. This gets to be easy. My inner dialogue was like, embrace the suck, suffer harder, push yourself, that kind of thing, right? The Marine. Yeah. And in Antarctica, I had a moment where I called her and told her, where I started embracing the duality, the paradox, right? That her side, it gets to be easy, is just as valuable. There's no right, wrong, good, bad. Both have their place. There are times when the hard version of me can fuel me, but there are times when, and I was doing that for certain days in Antarctica, just saying, why can't this be easy? This gets to be easy. This gets to be beautiful. So I was noticing a pattern, freeing myself from the second dart of suffering, and then exploring the other edge of that duality. And by exploring that other edge, you open yourself to new awakenings, new realizations, new opportunities, even new concrete results in the thing you're moving forward on. When I started embracing the edge of joy, life became much more joyful, and now, like my wife will tell you, my friends will tell you, I'm always laughing, always shooting the shit, super playful, and you can be all of those things at the same time. One of my core mantras now in the world of Fearvana is be a warrior in action, a monk in wisdom, and a child in play. You do all of those three things, life becomes so much more fulfilling.
Spoken from experience, and I remember Jordan Peterson was talking about this once. He talked about systematic desensitization, where he had a patient that was deathly afraid of elevators. She couldn't even think about going on. I mean, she would have like a visceral reaction. And so over the course of 2 weeks, he would like walk her to the building, day 2, walk her to the building and look at the elevator, day 3, walk to the building, look at the elevator, touch the elevator. Eventually, she, through that systematic process, was able to ride the elevator and she was cured. Isn't this amazing? And
Stress
it was literally just a construct of her mind. The same thing in psychocybernetics, where Maxwell Maltz talked about this person who was deathly afraid of snakes. And so they actually brought in fake snakes into the room and they brought in real snakes. And it was actually Bandler, one of the early proponents of NLP that did this process. And the guy was cured because you did on such a grand scale, face the thing that brings us so much visceral fear that if we weren't consciously aware of our work through it, that it would take hold of us. The fear would actually own us in a way that would stop our potentiation of growth. And I think this happens through religious training as well, where we're supposed to, even this phrase, a God-fearing man, you must fear God. It's like, this is completely opposite of what we need in the world. We don't need people to fear God. We get to have people that respect the mystery of God.
I love that.
The power of language is so severe here. It's we're literally praying to ourselves. You've dropped so many beautiful pieces of language here. The language of what Jordan Peterson did, what Maxwell Maltz did, and what you just shared with us about playing like a child and being a warrior, all of these things are essentially words. They're fed through this construct of the filter between our conscious and unconscious mind. And then our soul, or the essence of us, makes sense of it. We decide what we want to do with pieces of information. Yet that comes from a piece of sanity. And this is my question for you. Was there ever a moment out on the ice and in the snow on this epic journey where you ever questioned your sanity?
I think I stopped questioning my sanity a long time ago. We joke about how crazy I am.
Like, did you ever go like, oh shit, I'm losing it here? Like, did you ever have a moment where you're like, I'm feeling really crazy. I'm actually not aware of what's going on. Did
I
that
have
ever
moments
happen?
where I'm like, this is crazy, when I'm just mumbling to myself, like, because I'm out there skiing, and as I'm skiing, I'm mumbling to myself. I'm having dialogues with myself.
You're talking to Viktor Frankl's spirit.
Exactly. I'm talking, and you're like, this is crazy, dude. I'm losing my mind. And I would joke with my wife about it, you know?
Yeah.
So definitely moments of that. But that's also the value, coming back to the duality of, let's say, delusion being one edge of it. There's value in delusion. Delusion allows you to, I mean, again, healthy delusion can also lead you to dark places, but healthy delusion in the sense that, like, when you're delusional, you're shedding the rational mind. You're shedding the trappings of the rational mind. And in some sense, anyone who's achieved something truly innovative and great is delusional.
Yeah.
Because you're breaking the paradigm of the rational mind and the constructs of reality. I said to myself, why can't I get to the other end of Antarctica feeling as good as I did on day one? Now, does that mean whether it happens or not is sort of irrelevant, because all that's affecting me is in the now. The now is all that's real. It's all that exists. So if in the now, my delusional is helping me, even if in the future it doesn't end up being that way, who cares? That delusion is helping me. So embracing that crazy, go where it takes you, see where it takes you, let it flow through you, you know, and seeing what it will arise, how it'll shift your experience of the now.
Whoa. So you love that episode? You'll love the one on the screen. Click it and enjoy.